I'm going to be trying out the Swivel Sweeper Max. And from everything that I've seen, these have been around for a very long time. And they appear to work really good for hard floors. And as we all know, in many homes, hard floors are becoming much more popular than carpet. So let's open this up and check it out. So here are the parts that were included in the box. You have your sweeper head, your 3 poles, which will need to be assembled, a battery, and a battery charger. So first, let's go ahead and put these poles together. They seem to have tightened down and locked in pretty good. Next, I will slide the end of the pole onto here. And that locks on with some little tabs right here. Make sure that's all the way on there. There we go. And that's really it. The battery that's included with the Swivel Sweeper Max is a nickel metal hydride battery. And at the $40 price point, I would have much rather seen a lithium ion battery be included. When I did a little research on these, the battery failing seemed to be one of the biggest complaints. And I looked around and I found that there are replacement batteries available, although they're about $20 a piece, which is half the price of the machine. So I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration before you purchase one. Another thing that I saw was that people said they had some difficulty inserting and removing the battery. So let's see if that's going to be an issue. This is the compartment where the battery slides in, and there are also some arrows to let you know you're putting it in the right way. Okay, so going in was absolutely no problem, super easy. And there we go, got it clicked in all the way. Let's see, removing it, yeah, there's no issues with that. The battery is also a 7.2 volt, and of course it is rechargeable, and here's the charger. Now, one thing that I like about this particular charger and battery setup is that you don't have to have a cord tethered between the Swivel Sweeper Max and an outlet. You can simply pull out the battery, put it into the charger, and plug it into the wall. So I think that makes it a little bit easier. The recommendation for the initial charging of the battery is to charge it for at least 8 hours. The recommended charging time for the battery after completely depleting it is 6 to 8 hours. They say the battery may be left in the charger for extended periods of time, but do not exceed 12 consecutive hours. Doing so may lead to a shortened overall battery life, and it is not necessary to wait until the battery power is fully depleted before recharging. So here's a look at the bottom of the Swivel Sweeper Max, and it doesn't have wheels. For some reason I was expecting it to have wheels. So it looks like it just has slider pads, and I mean they're fairly slick. So it doesn't really roll over the floor, it kind of glides over the floor. Now it seems to glide pretty good right here on this countertop, although this is a very slick surface. But I would imagine that it probably glides pretty good over most floors. Now, some of the benefits of this particular sweeper is that it only weighs about 2 pounds. So it's light enough for pretty much anyone to use. And I also like that it has 4 brushes, so that it can pick up debris on all 4 sides no matter which direction you're using it in. But remember, this is just a sweeper. It's not designed to pull debris deep from inside carpeting and rugs and things like that. But it does look like it could be a good option for just day-to-day cleaning on hard floors. This whole middle piece is the dust tray, and you empty it by squeezing together these 2 little tabs right here. So I'll squeeze those and it pops open. It does look like it's going to have an adequate amount of room to pick up anything that you would need to for normal cleaning. If you have a lot of spilled large items, it may not be big enough, but I think for just normal floor sweeping, I think this is plenty large enough. On the top of the Swivel Sweeper Max, there is an air filter, which they said will need periodic cleaning. The brushes are removable, and to remove and clean one, push it inward, and it comes right off. And just repeat the process to reinstall it. On the top there are 2 locking clips, and if you need to remove the body from the frame, you just slide those in and you can lift the body right off. And I guess this would be good if you need to clear out anything stuck in the top that's really hard to get to. And one more thing I wanted to show you, they've actually put a magnet right here on the top, so when you want to store the swivel sweeper, you can lay the handle down and it'll hold itself to the magnet. So this is really a very thin profile for storage. And also because it has such a thin profile, it can fit under furniture really well. As far as the construction of the Swivel Sweeper Max, it's definitely plasticky. And I could see this getting damaged with some rough handling or if you drop it. But as an overall, it's a very compact sweeper and it's going to store very easily. I think that covers all the features of the Swivel Sweeper Max. But more importantly, we need to find out how it works. First thing I'm going to do is charge the battery for 8 hours, and then we'll test out the Swivel Sweeper Max and see how it does. I've got the battery for the Swivel Sweeper Max charged up, and first I'm going to try it on some tile and grout. I've got my little pieces of paper, some hair, and I also put some salt down. It might be a little hard to see. Candy, glitter, and some peanuts. So let's turn the Swivel Sweeper Max on and see what it can do. Okay, now it took me a good bit of passes to get a lot of this stuff up. And you saw me have to go back and forth on the little pieces of paper. It did okay on the salt. It actually did better than I thought on the glitter. Not as well on the hair. It took multiple passes and I had to kind of pick the Swivel Sweeper Max up and sit it on top of the hair, and it still didn't quite get it all. I noticed especially on the salt, when I was moving in this direction, it didn't really do that good, but when I went sideways with it, that it did a much better job of picking up the salt from the grout lines. I wouldn't say that this is quite as thorough as a Broom, but as an overall, it did a pretty decent job. I thought that it would do a little bit better job on the hair, but I did not think it was going to be able to pick up the salt and the glitter out of the grout lines, and it did. For tile and grout floors, I think it's a pretty decent option. Next, I'm going to try it on some LVP flooring. Again, on the LVP flooring, it did a pretty good job, but not perfect. There is a little glitter still scattered in a few spots, and again, it did not really pick up all the hair that well, although it's kind of hard to see on this floor. But I was really impressed with the way that it picked up the bigger items like the candy and the peanuts. One thing to be aware of is if you let the sweeper head tilt at an angle, the debris that's in the dust bin is going to fall out. So the first time I used it, I picked it up and I moved it, and a lot of the stuff fell out onto the floor. So you do need to keep it fairly level and flat to prevent that from happening. Another thing that I've noticed is there is a good bit of the dog hair stuck to the outside of the plastic case. I'm pretty sure that's just static buildup, but it is something to be aware of. As I said earlier, to empty the Swivel Sweeper Max, you just squeeze these two tabs together. And the trap door is supposed to open. It actually didn't quite open. Let's see. There we go. And there is the majority of what I picked up. Now there is still some left here on the bottom. You can see there's some hair stuck inside there. For only being the second time that I used it, I'm not real happy that the trap door didn't open like it was supposed to. Maybe because there's some grit inside here, but I'm not really sure. Looking at all the brush rollers, you can see that there is a good bit of hair stuck in there. So this is going to need frequent cleaning if you're using it in an area where there's animals and hair. Next, I'm going to try the Swivel Sweeper Max out on a very low pile carpeting. I'm not going to be using any glitter or salt in here because the Swivel Sweeper Max is not really designed to be a vacuum cleaner, and I don't think it's going to be very effective to remove such fine particles. I'm actually pretty surprised at how well it did do on the carpet. For surface debris, I think the Swivel Sweeper Max did a pretty good job. So now let's see how good it picks up things along the baseboards and the edge of walls. Perfect. Now I'm going to try the Swivel Sweeper Max on some regular nylon cut pile carpeting. Finally, I'm going to try the Swivel Sweeper Max out on a very dense but low pile rug. I did decide to go ahead and add some glitter on this. You've now seen the Swivel Sweeper Max used on a variety of different floorings, everything from hard floors to carpet. And I'm going to say that I think it does a fairly decent job on most of those surfaces. One thing that I did notice on the carpet is the brushes were struggling a little bit to roll properly. But even with a fairly low powered 7.2 volt battery, it still got the job done. As a matter of fact, I was kind of impressed with how well it did work on the carpet. And again, this is not going to be a replacement for a vacuum cleaner, and that's why I didn't use the salt and the glitter on most of the carpets that I tried it on. It's only going to be good for things on the surface. On the hard floors, it did a fairly good job of the bigger items. The candy and the peanuts picked up pretty good. It didn't do the best on the salt and the glitter, but both on the tile and grout and the luxury vinyl plank flooring, there are recessed areas in there that's going to make it a little harder to get out since this thing has no vacuum. It's completely relying on the brushes to be able to pull everything into the dirt tray. One thing that the Swivel Sweeper Max did struggle with on all the flooring was hair. Now some of those were larger clumps of hair, but even the smaller ones, it really didn't do that good of a job. And I think that's mostly due to the design of the Swivel Sweeper Max, that there's really not a whole lot of room between the edge of the plastic and the flooring that it's sitting on. So when it's sitting down on the floor, you only have about 1/4 of an inch area for something to get into. I did have the latch not open one time, but all the subsequent times that I tried to open the latch, it opened properly. I'm going to try one more time to empty this dirt tray and see if it opens like it's supposed to. Yep, everything came out pretty good. And I really don't like the fact that if you turn it too much one way or the other, any debris that you have in the dust tray is going to fall out. But I do realize that that's just the design of the Swivel Sweeper Max. So if you were planning on storing this and going to keep it up at a 90-degree angle, you definitely need to remember to empty it before you do that. There is a fair amount of hair and carpet fiber stuck in these brushes. But as I showed in the first part of the video, They're very easy to remove and clean out. It's also worth noting that the little sliders that they have instead of wheels worked really good on all surfaces. They do specifically say to not use it on concrete or any rough surfaces, and I'm sure that would eat these up and make them not slide very well. But I was kind of surprised at how well it did slide across all the floors with almost no effort. And remember, it only weighs about 2 pounds. I'll use the Swivel Sweeper Max to pick up some larger items across the hard floor, but it's not going to replace the broom and definitely not replace the vacuum cleaner. And I think it works good enough for what it is. Now, battery life, I've only used it about 20 minutes so far, and I didn't see any signs of the battery draining. So only time is going to tell how well the battery holds up. That's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, if you found it informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.